Hydo, and welcome to the Pantheon, the show where we have a look at certain commander and we pick out the 5 best cards for them. Today we're delving into the new Strixhaven Legends once more, and we're going to be having a look at Lisette, Dean of the Root, which costs 4 mana, and I'm rooting for this commander. She's a legendary creature, human druid, and whenever you gain life, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. Now, that's a lovely little miniature overrun, and it can win you some games. And most importantly of all, she's a 4/4. What a nice square unit. Absolutely lovely. So this deck, it is a Golgari deck because the flip side of that is a 1 mana 1/1 with Menace. But we're really going to be focusing on this commander as I think she's the better one and she has a lovely suite of abilities that we can use. So without further ado, let's move to number 5. And then at number 5, we've got Essence Warden. A 1 mana 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. This allows us to trigger our commander's ability over and over again whenever a creature enters the battlefield. So, if our opponent plays a creature, we can give all of our team +1/+1 permanently. This is absolutely fantastic, and she's a nice cheap card that we can play out early. Excellent. To go along with this, we've got Aetherflux Reservoir, a 4 mana artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn, and you can also pay 50 life. Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. That's a nice bit of gravy, and we can close out some games using that, or hold it over our opponents so that, we can manipulate them in any way we want. Then we've got Weather the Storm, which is a 2 mana instant. You gain 3 life. Storm. So if we cast this on our opponent's turn, we get, they've cast a couple of spells. We add on to it. We get 4 triggers. Each one will resolve separately to the others. So for each time that copy resolves, we can get +1/+1 onto our team if we have the mana available. So this can become a nice little finisher in the deck. Zulaport Cutthroat is a 2 mana 1/1. Whenever Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. Again, another great way to trigger life gain. We also can use a couple of other effects like this, but Zulaport Cutthroat is the cheapest one, so I think it's pretty good. Moving on to that, we've got a couple of life gain win conditions, let's say. So Veto Thorn of the Duskrose is a 3 mana 1/3, I think it is. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. And you can pay 5, creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. So all those little pings will really build up, slowly chip away at our opponent's life total. Sanguine Bond does the exact same thing. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Then we've got Exquisite Blood, which is a 4 mana enchantment, or 5 mana, I think it's 5 mana. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So in combination with either of these other 2 cards, we'll just kill our opponent because we gain some life, which means we ping our opponent. They've lost some life, so we gain some life. So it's onwards and upwards. In at number 4, we've got Courser of Crufix, a 3 mana 2/4. We can play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land card. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. This is another great way that we can trigger our commander's ability, and it leads us into a couple of more land-centric builds of the deck. Worm Harvest is a 5 mana sorcery with Retrace, which means we can cast it from our graveyard by discarding a land. Create a 1/1 black and green worm treach token for each land card in your graveyard. So, we fill our graveyard. Boom! Bing bang bosh. Avenger of Zendikar is a 7 mana 5/5. Creates a bunch of plant tokens, and their landfall gives them all +1/+1 for each land that enters the battlefield. Dread Presence is a 4 mana 3/3. Whenever a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. You draw a card and lose 1 life. Nice bit of card advantage. Or it deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. Thus trigger our commander again. To play around with all these land-based strategies, Life in the Loam fills our graveyard through Dredge, meaning if it's in its graveyard, you can Instead of drawing a card, you put Life and Loam into your hand and mill that many cards. It can return up to 3 target lands from your graveyard to your hand. To work really well with this, Tranquil Thicket and Barren Moor are fantastic as you can cycle them. Cycling MTG, that's me. And then you can get them back with Life of the Loam from the draw trigger. You can also put some fetch lands in here. They work fantastically with these cards. Moving on to number 3, and we've got Mycoloth. I wish he was legendary. He's just so cool. He's a big fungus dude. 5 mana for a 4/4 with Devour 2. As this enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature enters the battlefield with twice that many plus 1/1 counters. So, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 sacrificing creature token for each plus 1/1 counter on Mycoloth. A lot of this deck is built around tokens because we want to go wide because our commander buffs up a lot of creatures all at once. Mycoloth is the best of both worlds here. You can get a bunch of counters on him, which makes a large army, which, you know, we then trigger a bunch of life gain triggers. He makes him larger, even larger army. You just, your deck is incredible. Another couple of cards along this theme are Animation Module, which is a 1 mana artifact. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are placed on a permanent you control, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 color servo artifact creature token. Then you can pay 3 and tap it, choose a counter and tag it permanent or player, give that permanent or player another counter of this kind. Nice little engine, can slowly and surely expand the army. His only 1,000 Eyes is an army in a can, and if we're going to be doing a lot of dredging, she's absolutely incredible. 6 mana for a 2/3, not great, but she has Undergrowth. When she enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. And then she's also a sack outlet, so sacrifice another creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So again, she triggers our commander. She makes a large army, sacrifices one of them, buffs all the team. Planewide Celebration is a nice card for this deck. It is 7 mana, but then sorcery, choose 4, you may choose the same more than once, create a 2/2 citizen creature token that's all colours, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, proliferate, or gain 4 life. In this card, we've got an army in a can, loads of little creature tokens. We can return a bunch of permanents, so if we get board wiped, we can get everything back. We can proliferate, so if we've got a large army with a couple of 1/1 counters on them, gets enormous. And then we can also gain life if we want to trigger our commander in that way. Absolutely great. Which brings us on to number 2 and a couple more +1/+1 adjacent cards. Inspiring Call is a 3 mana instant. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Protecting your board is integral in green. Like, you want to be expanding and getting your army larger and larger, but you need to be able to control it. If your opponents go to board wipe, play this, draw a bunch of cards, you've still got an army. It's great. To go along with this, we've got Armorcraft Judge, a 4 mana 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Absolutely great. We've got our large army, draw more cards. The Great Henge is a 9 mana artifact. The spell costs X less, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. If we have our commander on the field, it's already 4 less. Tap, add double green and gain 2 life. Triggers our commander again. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it and draw a card. This could be a bit better, and the card we're coming to, Path of Discovery, does trigger on tokens, but it can help us churn through the deck if we're just playing out a couple of small creatures. Path of Discovery is a 4 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it explores, which means you reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand if it's a land card, otherwise put a 1/1 counter on that creature, and you may put that card back on top or put it into your graveyard. Brilliant. Nice bit of card advantage, and you get some counters as well. Which brings us on to our number 1 card. Crystalline Crawler is a 4 mana 1/1. It has Converge, which means it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each colour of mana spent to cast it. But then, this is where it gets interesting. Remove a 1/1 counter from Crystalline Crawler, add 1 mana of any colour. can also tap it to put a 1/1 counter on Crystalline Crawler. So, picture the scene. We've got our commander on the field and a Crystalline Crawler. We've gained some life. We have to pay 1. Okay, great, we pay 1. That gives everything a +1/+1 counter, which also gives Crystalline Crawler a +1/+1 counter. So we then have the mana to be able to, next time we gain life, we can take a counter off, and we can just do this over and over and over again. It's really quite synergistic, and I really like it. To go along with that, we've got Workhorse, which is a 6 mana 0/0, which comes in with 4 1/1 counters on it. Remove a 1/1 counter from Workhorse. Add 1 cost mana to your mana pool. Exactly the same effect as Crystalline Crawler. Works just as well. Then we've got Spike Feeder. So 3 mana for a 0/0. Enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters. Pay 2, remove a 1/1 counter from Spike Feeder. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. But we can remove a 1/1 counter from Spike Feeder to gain 2 life. So, with Spike Feeder and Workhorse or Crystalline Crawler and our commander on the field, we remove a counter from Spike Feeder, gain 2 life, trigger our commander, remove a counter from Workhorse. We then put a 1/1 counter on both the Spike Feeder and the Workhorse, and we can do this over and over again. So we gain infinite life, all of our creatures get infinitely big, apart from the Spike Feeder and the Workhorse, who stay the same. Absolutely wonderful. Great bit of synergy, and it'll win a couple of games for you. Noose Graph is a 6 mana 0/0. When it enters the battlefield, it comes in with 5 1/1 counters. Whenever a player casts a spell, remove a 1/1 counter from Noose Graph mob. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Very similar to this. Every time a creature comes in, our opponents cast a spell, we get to create a little dude, and if we gain some life off that dude through, Essence Warden, we can put a counter back on and then just keep going. Our army will grow and grow and grow. Brilliant. Now, that is my top 5 cards for this commander, and I'm really excited to play with it. I think it's got a nice bit of synergy going on. So, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to subscribe, please do.